Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Southside Beat, episode 199. And there's a new guy to my right. His name is Greg Macafee, our new Steelers reporter here on DK Pittsburgh Sports and new co-host of the show. Greg, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Glad to get started. Glad to finally join here after a week on the beat so far. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you. Good to finally not have to ramble here by myself for 30 to 40 minutes. I'm sure
It
everybody
makes it a
watching
little
the
easier,
show.
I'm sure.
Yeah, everybody watching the show live or even listening afterward is probably just thankful. Like, man, I'm just glad that guy's just not going to be rambling on and on incoherently. But yeah, so really quick, is there any kind of message you want to send? Anything you wanted to say to everybody here? We got a good group here. You'll start to notice the similar names. Like B-Phil likes to come in here. He's already noticing the new logo is quick, man. Like we got that taken care of. Everything's good to go. Is there anything you wanted to say real quick before we got started on today's episode? Because today's gonna be a doozy. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just excited to get going, honestly. I've kind of been around the Pittsburgh area since I was in college. And I've been down in the North Shore for every
Dan,
Steelers home game over
heard
the
the
last
Dan.
over the last since probably like 2011. So I'm sure I've probably seen a bunch of these people down there working as a vendor. So been all over the place in terms of sports reporting and stuff like that. So I'm just excited to kind of get going and get into this. It's fun.
Awesome, man. Well, glad to have you aboard. And like I said, not only for the work we're gonna do on the Steelers beat, which I'm excited about. Shoot, man, 2 weeks from tomorrow, players report to training camp. So excited about that.
Oh yeah.
And but before we get there, we do have some news that dropped yesterday. We have to kind of address it, in some form or fashion, just because it's not something we can just sweep under the rug, and it's not anything the Steelers are going to be able to just sweep under the rug. So the news from yesterday was Cam Sutton, probably not long after yesterday's show ended, the news dropped that Cam Sutton was suspended for the first 8 games of the NFL regular season. That is without pay. So that 1.21 million veteran minimum is going to be less than that. He will not be making $1 million this year. It'll be about half of that. But we kind of knew that there was going to be some form of punishment coming. I don't want to get into the details of the legal stuff, and I really urge everybody in the chat to not let's not go overboard here. Like we kind of know, and really, I have an opinion. I'm sure Greg has an opinion. We don't need to be sitting here spewing our opinions about, what the legal ramifications should be, or the Steelers shouldn't have signed them. The fact of the matter is that they did, and this is what we have to deal with now. So 8 games, he's not appealing. That's it. Your initial reaction to it, Greg, what was your reaction? I had my own personal, I'm not going to share my personal feelings of it, but your own initial reaction to it when the news dropped.
I mean, I think we knew it was coming. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
something that's kind of, been bounced around. Obviously, I feel like if the team felt comfortable signing him, they had to feel like something was coming in the end run. So I don't think it really came as a surprise at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't feel it was a surprise. I think we knew a
Yeah.
suspension was coming. I think B-Phil
Mhm.
says it here, says suspension was not a surprise, but 8 games was.
Yeah.
Eight games is bit. That's
Mhm.
half the season, So
Yeah.
they like you said, the Steelers had to have known that there was going to be something coming.
Mhm.
And so it is what it is whenever you bring in a player. And really, and I thought if you hadn't got a chance to listen to DK's Daily Shot from this morning, I thought that he brought up a good point that right now we need to kind of hear what Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan are going to say about it, because
Yeah.
the last time either of them spoke about it, or at least Mike Tomlin spoke about it, it was just what's going to happen if there is a suspension. And now we know.
Mhm.
And so for us here, we're going to try to focus on the on-field ramifications of it. And just kind of put this out. Jay Moods asks here, do you think he would have got less games if he signed somewhere else? I don't think that really matters.
Yeah.
I think the NFL is trying to make a suspension they're trying to send a message through the suspension of like, hey, what you did is worthy of missing half of a season. I don't think who he plays for has anything to do with that.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that for sure.
Yeah. So okay. Here's a question for Brent. Do you think we bring Peterson back now? Is Patrick Peterson, is that the route to go? Do the Steelers bring in some sort of veteran presence to fill that role for the time being, or do they let the young guys duke it out in training camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think the smart thing would be to kind of let the young guys duke it out in training camp, and if they find out that they need to bring in a vet, they need to bring someone in. I mean, there's a ton of veterans out there, Patrick Peterson being one of them, but Stephon Gilmore is still out there. There's a couple other guys as well. But I think you let the young guys duke it out in camp, let them prove themselves. If no one kind of rises to the top, then go get a veteran in free agency.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that you kind of go both ways here.
Yeah.
You bring in a veteran, you bring in somebody who can come in, whether that's Patrick Peterson or whoever else. But then you also, like, I'm curious to see what Beanie Bishop has, undrafted free agent out of West Virginia. I'm curious because his skill set seems to fit a slot corner position. I'm curious, even though he worked as a safety during OTAs and minicamp, I'm curious about Ryan Watts, the 6th round pick out of Texas. He's really interesting to me. I love his physicality. Love the way he runs downhill. To me, he could fit that role quite a bit. He's not as good in man coverage, much better in zone. I think he could be better that way. I would like to see a young guy take the bull by the horns and be able to do that. But at the same time, if you really want to cover all your bases and give yourself the most, really just give yourself the most amount of options, you got to get a veteran, I think, at this point, because it is half the season.
Yeah, no, I can completely agree with that. I mean, I was from the standpoint of seeing how the young guys do in camp too. You give if you're bringing in a veteran, you're giving him a little extra time to kind of stay rested, not beating himself up in training camp, all of that stuff, going through the rigors of it in July and early August, and just kind of give them that little extra rest to see if they, they actually need to bring in someone. But I think you always want to see those young guys, especially with Joey Porter Jr. on the opposite side. You always want to see those. I mean, you could set yourself up for the future right there. Yeah.
That's Beat asks really quick. Do you think he would have not gotten a suspension yet because he cleared it up in the comments? Says, do you think he would have not gotten a suspension yet if the legal process was still ongoing? Yeah, the NFL probably usually waits, for the league or for the justice system rather to do their due diligence, to do their job, and then they react. Unless there's some sort of the Ray Rice incident where there's some sort of evidence that comes out and it's like, okay, now we have to take action. That was as blatant as it could be. The dude cold cocked the woman in an elevator. Like, you can't run away from that, And so if there was video of this stuff coming out of what Cam Sutton did, shoot, man, either he wouldn't have got a suspension or if he would have already gotten a suspension, it probably would have been we're probably not looking at just 8 games. Right. And people coming here saying he's guilty and stuff like that. Listen, the legal stuff it's its own thing. I'm not going to get into the legal stuff because, again, I have my opinion. Everybody has an opinion on it. The fact of the matter is that we're going to talk about what the reality is. And the reality is that he is on the Pittsburgh Steelers for now, unless they come out and they just cut him. For now, he is on the Steelers. The Steelers have to navigate this, and that includes kind of what Rick brings up here. It's all PR calculation. Either way, it's all PR stuff at this point. The Steelers know that they're going to have to go through the PR landmine of Cam Sutton questions. Whenever reporters show up to St. Vincent College in a couple weeks, and Mike Tomlin speaks with the media for the first time, it's going to be one of the first questions that comes up.
Yeah,
it comes with the territory when you deal with a player who is dealing with an off the field issue.
I mean, and he had to have known all of this was coming. I mean, Cam Sutton's been around the team before, so Tomlin kind of know who he's dealing with, knows Cam as a person. So yeah, I mean, he's got to be ready to answer some questions, I'm assuming, when training camp starts.
Yeah. Mark brings up something else here when it comes to on the field stuff. He says, I agree, Chris. Let the young guys duke it out in camp. We're finally going to utilize the 3 safety package anyway. I would assume they would do the 3 package, the 3 safety package. They did it in 2022 whenever it was Minka, Terrell Edmonds, and DeMonte Casey. When Casey, came back from his injury and suspension. So I would assume that since they have Minka, Deshaun Elliott, and KZ, but at the same time, when you have like all of these options, it gives you the ability. Okay, here we're gonna for this nickel package, we're gonna run with the typical 3 corners and two safeties, or maybe this nickel package we can go 2 corners and 3 safeties, or there's a number of different ways they could go about it. So, it's the on the field issue, like it pretty much puts the Steelers right back to where they were before they signed him, because it was one of the big question marks. Obviously, receiver, still the biggest hole in the team. Defensive line kind of up there because you got questions about, okay, is Cam Hayward going to be able to be healthy? How is he going to look if he is healthy? Keanu Benton, is he going to take, there's questions on the defensive line, but then after that it was pretty much slot corner, like who's going to play that? Now we're right back to where we were with that before they signed Sutton, just because he is out for half the season. So
yeah.
Do you think that this becomes, okay, shoot, the Steelers have 15 million in cap space. Do you think that this becomes like, okay, now we have to go out and get or do they just continue to kind of bargain shop and
I mean, I think you would have to think that they want to see what they have, in the tank, in the room already. And kind of after that, let's kind of see what we got, and then go get if we need something. So, but I think they're going to eventually bring someone in from free agency. They're going to end up, going out to find someone. I think, Peterson's probably one of the best fits that's out there. He's been in the system before. He knows what he's doing. I'm not sure what his price tag is going to look like, but going out and it's a need. So we have to go out and kind of, get someone.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And I already got, as soon as I opened my live queues this morning on the site, I already had a question asking, is there any truth to the rumors about Patrick Peterson? I haven't heard anything definitive, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything happening. It could happen, but there's no doubt that there is a number of waves to this fallout. There just is. Daniel Pike brings in Chandon Sullivan, who played last season with the Steelers in that role. There's a number of different ways that the Steelers can go. I think Patrick Peterson could fit that pretty well. Yeah. I think he pretty much showed last year that the ability to play outside consistently he's kind of over that. He can't quite do it at the level he used to. So either playing safety or playing inside in the slot, that's probably the way to go. And now that the Steelers have Dante Jackson, you got Porter, you got Jackson on the outside, you're pretty much good there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Mark brings up a good point here too, that you don't have to necessarily have to panic here. He says, plus there'll be vet DBs available after camp cut, so no rush to sign Patrick Peterson. But I think, again, at the same time, you want to bring in a veteran to kind of push the younger guys too. Whether that's Peterson or Sullivan or whoever else, you want to bring in somebody who, it's kind of like what happened with Quan Alexander last year. He ended up just earning a job outright. But you bring in veterans to help kind of push those younger guys too. Maybe bringing in a veteran is all, Beanie Bishop or Ryan Watts needs in order to up their game just a little bit to try to get, to get themselves a job. So to move on to another subject. I mean, we've talked, good length about this. I didn't want to spend an entire 30 minutes or whatever talking about Cam Sutton because, and kudos to you guys in the chat. It's not getting out of hand. It's not getting crazy. So I appreciate that. I think we can, I speak for Greg when I say we appreciate that. Really, quick question here from Snowman. Does Cam Hayward get his extension this summer? What's your gut feeling when it comes to contract extensions? Because this is obviously going to be a topic of conversation as the summer begins.
Yeah, I think it depends on his number and just kind of how he's bounced back from surgeries from last season and everything like that. I mean, he's getting towards the end of his career, like we all know. Obviously, he's been around the Pittsburgh Steelers forever. He wants to be one of those, one helmet guys. I just think it really depends on where his price point is, and if they can come to an agreement on that, if he's worth that in the long run. Because I mean, he said that he wants to play 2 or 3 more years. So is there a number out there that works for both the Steelers and Hayward, or do we give him one of those kind of he's been a Steeler guy forever, so we kind of give him throw him a bone for the end of his career. I think there's a lot of factors that are kind of going to play into it.
He's said that he wants to be valued as a top 5 guy because he feels like he can be a top 5 guy still at his position.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the top 5 defensive linemen, like interior linemen, and how they get paid, that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I even threw out a number a while back. I think it was something like in the realm of like 4 years and 60 million or something like that. Now I'm talking about that includes this year. I'm talking about 4 years on top.
Yeah.
Or no, not 4 years. Sorry, 3 years, 60 million. So that would include this upcoming season plus 2 more, and then 60 million over those 3 years, and like maybe 45 of that guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines. Now that's not top 5 money. But to me, like that's a number that I think both parties could win. Maybe Cam Hayward could hear that and he just laughs and he's just like, yeah, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm not settling for 20 million a year. But it's something that's going to have to be talked about. It's something that's going to have to continue continue to be brought up, along with the fact that, by the way, there's Najee Harris that could possibly get an extension this summer. Oh, what about Jalen Warren, who's going to be a restricted free agent? Oh yeah, then there's also Pat Freiermuth. Like, there's a number of guys that are worthy of being extended past this season, and Cam probably should be at the front of that line, I would think.
You got to throw the quarterback into the mix too.
Yeah, and that's what I've constantly said, especially because here, like on this show, like the live chat and everything like that, we have constantly talked about the only logic I can make up behind the decision to not pick up the 5th-year option on Najee was to maintain flexibility beyond the 24 season. That's the only thing that makes sense. But then again, if they sign him to an extension this summer, that's not necessarily maintaining flexibility, but maybe like they get Najee for even less than what the 5th-year option would have been. But I don't even see that happening because the 5th-year option itself was like 6.8 million or something like that. It wasn't very much. There was a couple of other questions in here that I wanted to bring in. There was another guy. Oh, Mark had a quick question on Sutton real quick. That's important to know. He asked, Sutton will be at camp, guys, right? And the answer is yes. Like, Cam Sutton will be there. It's not like now that he's suspended, it's not like he's like, okay, you can't be at training camp. You can't be in preseason or anything like that. It's just when the regular season begins, if you can go back and remember the situation with Ben Roethlisberger, it's the same thing. Right, like when he was suspended for the first 4 games of the 2010 season, same thing. It's just when the regular season begins, he's gone. He's suspended. He's not anywhere to be found.
Yeah.
And so when he comes back, then there you go, and that'll be after the Week 8 game against the Giants. So that's the answer there. Let's see, and talk about the Cam Hayward stuff, man. Like,
no.
Nick says paying big money to somebody 35 plus seems incredibly risky.
Especially in this game, especially playing defensive tackle in the middle of the, middle of the line. I mean, we all know what Cam's done for Pittsburgh, but I mean, at the end of the day, he said it himself. It's a business, and it's a business on both sides.
Yeah. Okay. So just to put that number, like take that number that I threw out there. If it's 3 years, 60 million, 45 guaranteed. Do you think if that's the contract that comes out, do you feel satisfied with that? Do you think that that's a fair number?
Getting that old, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it might be a little bit too high. I mean, with the guy reaching towards reaching the end of his career, coming off, 2 groin surgeries, everything like that. I mean, I know he was kind of at his height when he went down last year. He had a couple pretty good seasons before that, but it seems at a guy his age, it seems like a very high number to me.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a high number to me too, but I mean, I'm just trying to think of like because again, when you look at like top 5 guys, what they're making, like 20 million a year is not what they're making. They're making more. And so that's why I'm thinking like, but like for example, Cam's the AAV for his last contract was $16 million a year.
Yeah.
And so his cap hit, because it was restructured along the way, his cap hit this upcoming season is 22.4.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's why I'm like, okay, is 20 million probably a good number to kind of, to me, that's like the barometer that I would set.
Do you think they wait until the end of the season though to see what he's able to do? Like if he comes out this year and he has a great year and he does double-digit sacks, stay healthy, do you think then they give him that? Because if he's able to do that, I'd probably feel a little bit more comfortable. But because he's bouncing back from injury, do you think they're waiting to see what he's able to do this year?
I think there's a part of that. I think Omar Khan has a certain way of operating, and it's that he's got a number in his head.
Yeah.
And he's not there's a certain number that he's just not willing to go past. And if they can't work out an extension that goes past that, or that falls within that number, that range, whatever it is, then I think he's willing to wait. I think he has shown an incredible level of patience.
Yeah.
And so I think ultimately both sides want this to work out. I think when Cam Hayward says he wants to be a Steeler, but he also wants to be valued, I think he truly means that. I think he wants to get paid what he deserves, but he also wants to remain a Steeler. I think he thinks both things can happen. The question is that do the Steelers and Cam feel similarly about what a fair pay is?
Yeah.
And I think that Omar Khan is willing to be patient for that. So I'm not convinced that a contract extension comes this summer. Do I think if you were to put a gun to my head and ask me, I would probably say yes, it happens at some point. But at the same time, I'm playing with fire a little bit there. I don't know if I'm completely convinced that it'll 100% happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be a double-edged sword in a way, because if he comes out this season and he has a great year, I don't know if they're willing to, for another 3 years. I don't know if they be willing to pay him those big bucks to bring him back again and everything like that. So it could essentially be a tryout for another team too.
Yep. And shoot, like you could say the same thing about Najee Harris, who is now going into the last season of his contract. You could say the same thing about Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah,
and this is a critical year, because we're talking about all these guys. We're not even like you mentioned earlier. We're not even talking about quarterbacks. We're not talking about the fallout or the ramifications if Russell Wilson taps into some sort of fountain of youth and he all of a sudden looks like a legitimate franchise quarterback again. Not that he was even bad last year in Denver. I mean, you'll take 26 touchdowns to 8 picks, like easily take that. But I'm just saying, like if he looks like a perfect fit into this offense for however it happens, if he turns into a perfect fit, that's something that the Steelers are gonna have to figure out. Or if Justin Fields figures out or realizes his potential, for whatever reason, it didn't work in Chicago, but there might be something in the magic waters of the Monongahela River or whatever that makes it work for Justin Fields. Whatever it is, like if that works out, they're going to have to pay a quarterback. That's the most important position that they have to figure out. And if that comes at the cost of kind of Cam Hayward's farewell tour in Pittsburgh, then maybe that's the price that you're also having to pay in order to get the quarterback position figured out, because there's a lot of things that this front office has to figure out. There's quite a bit, and I'm curious to get Omar's perspective on that when training camp begins. Truly,
for sure. I mean, if you look at any team across the NFL, I mean, it starts at quarterback. So if you got someone in-house that deserves the money, I mean, I think you got to give it to them no matter what. And that might end up hamstringing them in other parts of the building.
Yeah. Okay, well, we probably got time for a couple questions. If you guys have any questions, throw them our direction. Greg's a newbie, so like
be easy on me, guys. Be easy.
Yeah, let's put him through the ringer. Let's put him through the ringer. Ask some questions. We want to get to at least 30 minutes here. But tomorrow, I don't know if you guys, basic math here. Tomorrow will be episode number 200 of the show already.
Ooh, big number.
So We'll try to have something, something special planned. I don't know. It won't be anything like groundbreaking or anything like that, but we'll maybe I'll like bring a little cupcake over here and celebrate with a little. I don't know. But Chris B71 here asks, how are you feeling about being here, Greg? Just how do you feel about the overall job? Just shoot, man, you like your last job with what you were doing, man. Like take us through that and take us through your excitement. You've already covered two Pirate games, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take you back. I'll give you kind of my background. If you guys didn't read my intro article or anything like that, I grew up in Western New York. I went to school at Slippery Rock, graduated in 2014 before moving to the West Coast, working in sports for a little small three time a week newspaper, and then I went back to school and got my master's degree from Arizona State. And I came back here. I worked for the Beaver County Times. I worked for the Tribune Review. And I moved over all in sports. And then I moved over to Youngstown, Ohio, which is where I'm coming from. I was a sports editor. I moved over to news. I was a Metro editor. And then I became the head honcho, the editor in chief. That lasted about 6 months before I was like, I got a calling in sports. I need to get back to it. And DK had this opening here, and I couldn't be happier to be back in sports. I couldn't be happier to be back in Pittsburgh. It holds a special place in my heart just from being in school here. And I mentioned earlier, and I saw someone in the comments asking, what I was a vendor for down in the North Shore for games. I sold jerseys. I sold T-shirts. We sold everything. They were right on the corner of General Robinson and Tony Dorsett. Huge stand. Can't miss it. We were there every Sunday from when I was 18 until recently, outside of the time I was in Arizona. And, Steelers fans are some of the best. I come from Western New York, Bills guy through and through. When I was younger, my grandpa had season tickets.
Right.
My grandpa had season tickets. I was kind of born into it, but the Steelers hold a special place in my heart. So I'm excited to be here. And I'm excited to get going. Like I said, this special franchise here. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for me in our career. And, I've said recently, I'm a huge believer of, you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And, this isn't a job. This is something I can enjoy every day.
Yep. 100%.
So I'm excited.
100%. I agree with that completely. And when my wife, when we were deciding, whether or not to accept, the promotion that I got here, to make the move up to Pittsburgh and everything like that for the job, she kept asking me is this something you really want to do? I'm like, it's not working to me. I love going to the South Side every day, through that, it's a grind. I'm not denying that whatsoever. During the season, you're working 70 to 80 hours a week, easy, because it's, your only day off is occasionally, I would get like a Friday off or something like that. But even then, those Friday off days where I'm not having to go to the South Side, I'm still writing like a game preview or something. So you're still working. And then when the Steelers are on the road, that Saturday, you're most likely traveling. So it's an off day, but you're also spending time of, part of your time traveling. So, but still just that grind of doing everything, man, it doesn't feel like work to me because we're getting to talk about, about this team. We're getting to bring insight and bring a different perspective on this team. And I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to have you aboard so that we can knock this out. I'm excited for it. I already came up with an idea for what we're going to do for episode 200. So you're a Bills guy growing up, but you know about like the Steelers franchise and stuff like that. So I'm going to put together my own Steelers trivia for you. With some like there will be some easier questions in there. I'm not gonna go like completely overboard because I'm not gonna like pretend I'm some sort of Bob Labriola and know as much about the franchise as he does. But this is a franchise that I have at least watched for almost 37 years. I do know it pretty well, so I will. I'll put that together for you. That'll be something fun.
I'm gonna have to do some studying tonight.
yeah. BFL said you got to prove yourself.
There you go.
Here's a good question for you. Who's your favorite Steeler of all time?
Oof. So I mean, I've kind of been around the team since Big Ben was around and a little bit before that and everything like that. I've always been a huge fan of Troy Polamalu, just the way he played the game.
Mhm.
It's exciting to watch. Obviously, Big Ben, huge fan of him and the way he played the game. There's always been that connection between Josh Allen and Big Ben and how they play the game with the cannon arm and the ability
Yeah,
to run around and stuff like that. So that's always good.
yeah.
When Le'Veon was here, I was a huge fan of him and the way he ran the ball and everything like that. I was kind of disappointed to see the way that kind of whole all turned out when
He
he
is
was
too.
around. So,
He
so
is too now.
yeah, those are a couple of guys that come to mind just off the top of my head. But I'm sure there's other I can mention down the road.
Oh yeah, no. When it
Mhm.
comes to Troy Polamalu, I got a buddy of mine who's I live I've lived in the Dallas area for 23 years, and
Yeah,
so I got a buddy of mine, Cowboys fan through and through, die hard.
yeah,
But one of his all-time favorite players is Troy Polamalu. He just
yeah.
loves the way he played. And B. Phil brings up is like, what? No bus? My sister-in-law, diehard Cowboys fan through and through. But when the Steelers were playing in Super Bowl 40, she was cheering for the Steelers because she wanted Jerome Bettis to win.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny. That's bad throwing shade. But Ben would never do a fake slide.
Hey, Kenny
Oh,
Pickett did though.
yeah, but he did it with
Yeah,
Pitt. And listen,
yeah, I know. I'm just throwing it out there.
there's a good portion of this fan base here that was ready to move on from Kenny Pickett. So I don't think you're gonna
Yep,
upset too
I
many
can
people
understand
about.
that. I can understand that.
All righty. Well,
Hey,
I think
I will say the one thing I do want to say about Troy is one thing
yeah.
that drew me to him from afar when I was growing up is when he would come up to the line of scrimmage and pre-jump a snap and just come
Oh
flying over
yeah.
the line. Those are my favorite highlights to watch of all time. It's just so much fun.
Yeah. Really quick. Well, and I wanted to. Yeah, there was one more actual football question in here I wanted to get to.
Mhm.
Brian brings this up. He says, "Am I off base for thinking that an offensive lineman would be involved in a trade before the season starts? Roster is loaded with starters and potential starters, in my opinion. I do think that it's a possibility. Dan Moore would be
Mhm.
probably the most likely candidate. I don't think the Steelers are necessarily looking to just get rid of him. I don't think it's a situation in which they're like, okay, Kevin Dotson, we kind of know he was going to go when Sayamalu was signed. Um, Kind of the same thing with Kendrick Green, but didn't quite know. Dan Moore, I don't think that the Steelers are necessarily as eager to trade him away, but I think if the right trade package came to Omar Khan's desk, like he might pull the trigger on it if
Yeah.
the return were right, whether it would be draft picks, whether it be a receiver, whatever the case may be. I do think that Dan Moore is probably the most likely candidate to be traded. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, just from everything that I've seen kind of leading into this job and doing kind of all my research and everything like that, Omar Khan is not going to do a trade that doesn't benefit him in some
Yeah.
way. So if
Mhm.
he gets the right package where it's going to improve the team, I guarantee you he'll pull the trigger. But I think it's one of those things where you don't necessarily go looking for it, but
Yeah.
you also if it comes to your desk and it looks right, you know, I think it would make sense. But depth on the offensive line is always so good to have, especially, injuries always come up and everything like that. It's always good to have. But if it looks right, I'd say pull the trigger.
Yeah, I would think so too. I think I even like leading up to the draft, I was running the mock draft simulator on Pro Football Focus like every day, multiple times a
Yeah.
day. And I think even at one point I put a little mock draft together, and like I can't remember the tackle but I had the Steelers taking a tackle in the first round because I knew heading in, like I had literally like team sources telling me that like if the team has their way, they're going to get a tackle. Like that's
Yeah.
priority, and that's what ended up happening. And so, like when I was running them, I'm trying to go from the team's perspective. So I kept trying to get a tackle in the first round. And there was one point, I actually traded Dan Moore to make sure that the Steelers could get one of the other players that they would want in the draft. Because it's like if you get that tackle in the first round, like Dan Moore becomes expendable.
Yeah.
Especially if you feel like that guy that you got is going to become one of your bookends of the future. And if they believe that Broderick Jones is their left tackle of the future, and the fact that they're already putting Fautanu on the right side, which is what they did during OTAs and minicamp, it's like, okay, well, if that's what they think it is, might as well get the chemistry started right away, put them both out there. Now, Steelers don't do that. When Mike Tomlin sends the team out for the first practice on the 25th, I guarantee you Dan Moore is on the first team.
Yeah.
And Fautanu is not. I'll be shocked if it's different, just because they don't hand. He's not going to pull another Kendrick Green again, where here rookie, here's a job. Like, that's not happening. So no, I agree. Well, thank you guys so much for this show. Greg, so glad to have you aboard, so I don't have to talk the whole time.
Glad to help you out.
I actually get to talk with somebody, and then also like do it with all you guys here in the chat. It's awesome. Definitely looking forward to finishing out. But like I said yesterday, next week the show is actually going to take a little bit of a hiatus because I'm doing all-star stuff, going to be moving. I'm not going to ask Greg to come on here and be like, hey buddy, all yours, let's
throw me to the wolves.
Yeah, throw you to the wolves. You have to do this by yourself. Like, let's get him comfortable a little bit, but get more than 4 shows in him before he's going to start running this by himself. So got near 200 shows of this already done. So.
You got some experience under your belt.
Right. So no, Greg will get there eventually. If I need it, I have a day where I'm not able to do it, he can handle it, but let's ease into this. Let's not give a rookie a starting job right away. Right.
All right, Mike Tomlin.
Hey man, you know what? Whenever this guy comes up with so many great cliches and stuff like that, you just got to use them, man. You just got to use it. You gotta. I've probably said, oh, okay. What's your favorite Tomlinism that you know? That's a good one to end on.
The standard is the standard.
That's your favorite one?
That's my favorite one.
All right. So I got a few. Painting the barn red. If I got red paint, we're gonna paint the barn red. That's a good one. The one that got me the most is we're still squirreling those nuts. That one got me. I really could not get over that. That one was funny. That one was really
I'm
good.
sure I'll get some more like as I get involved with more press conferences, but that's the one that has always stuck out to me. So I think it's probably the one I see the most. But the standard is the standard. I mean, you're gonna hear this one quite a bit. We don't seek comfort. That one is and Tomlin does do a lot of William brings this one up. He does do a lot of the we're not urinating on the fire. He said something about like I remember sometime during the 2022 season, which was Jalen Warren's rookie year, somebody asked him about like Jalen like not being nervous or something like that, and he said something about he wasn't urinating down his leg or anything like that. And I just it's sometimes whenever he says things, but and then my all-time favorite Mike Tomlin moment might be when he was asked about the USC job that he was rumored to get, and said something like there isn't a booster with a big enough blank check or whatever. Yeah, but he also said never say never, but never. So the one thing that you can say about Mike Tomlin, no matter what, is that he's entertaining 100%. 100%.
So, but you're going to get a taste real early of just what it's like to work those press conferences. Because I'll tell you what, I went from covering the Texas Rangers and Chris Woodward, who was the most open talking manager ever. I could ask him almost anything and he would spin out a novel, and it made transcribing terrible, but I would get whatever answer I wanted. That is not the case with Mike Tomlin. You have to word everything just right if you really want to get the answer you want. So all right, man. Well, we could go over the Mike Tomlinisms all we want, but tomorrow Steelers trivia for sure. I'll put that together.
Okay.
Do your homework.
I'll do some studying tonight. Encyclopedia, Steelers Encyclopedia.
Yeah, there you go, man. All right. Thank you everybody for joining the show today.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Greg, for joining the show. Looking forward to doing the show with you.
Yes, sir.
We'll catch you guys on the flippity flip. See you tomorrow on a hump day Wednesday for episode 200. Peace out.